Welcome to our backyard. We wanted to give you a rundown of what our plans are for our garden this year.
Welcome and happy gardening.
So here you can see that the side of our house we have a cattle panel hoop in this style of Roots and Refuge. And then we have an area. This was our in-ground garden that we've used for the past, 3 or 4 years now. And then over here we have another arch. And there is a perennial. It's called cat mint. It's a family of the mint plant. Not to be confused with catnip. But anyways, this is our in-ground garden that we've been doing. And the last year we were using it, it was very, very disappointing. And our only conclusion is it's too shaded because you can see it's surrounded by our neighbor's trees. And also the soil is depleted from growing in the garden for the 3 years. So our plan this year for this part of the garden is to put perennial plants in that can just stay here. If we can find some strawberries, that'd be wonderful, but probably a lot of herbs, and just let it be. Part of our reasoning is we don't really want to take the fence down and open it up and turn it back into yard, because the trees over here are mainly pecans, and those are the ones that are causing our dogs problems. Evidently, dogs eating pecans can cause pancreatitis and make them very, very sick. So it's helpful that it's cordoned off from the dogs. So we want to leave it that way, but we don't want to just leave it as is. So that's why we're going to plan on putting perennial plants in there. That will be less maintenance, less water, and just be happy year round. So over here we have a bench that West built me for raised bed gardening, and it has used we mainly have strawberries in it, but it's grown carrots and basil, and I've tried radishes and beets and all those sort of things in it. And this year we're gonna just dedicate the whole thing to strawberries because the family really likes strawberries. Along this corner here, there was usually lots of pots around it that was filled with herbs. But now that the herbs are moving over there, we don't necessarily need the pots over here. And so I'm changing over all my decorative pots to flowers. This is the first year we've actually had dedicated just flowers back here in some pots. And so this one is the beginning of our first of our garden this year. It's an ice plant. So for vegetables this year, our plan is to go transition to pots and container gardening. So here we have a pot. Last year we put onions in it. And this one, we have 3 more containers like this. So our plan is to continue them along here. Those were
Tomatoes.
Pots that we used for growing tomatoes last year, so they're available. But our plan is to just make a long line of pots all along this area. And this area of the yard gets a lot more sun than just a couple of feet that way. And yeah, so I'm hoping the sun will be very helpful, and then also with the pots, then we'll have more control over the water. Because really, oftentimes I felt like we're just watering their neighbors' trees with the in-ground garden, because the water just goes down and you can't tell if it's, when it's enough. So to expand our pots, this last weekend, West found a Facebook Marketplace offering. Was it Facebook Marketplace? Craigslist?
Random Facebook posting.
Oh, just random Facebook posting, offering some containers for free, and we were very excited. So we drove about 20 minutes?
Yeah.
20 minutes or so from here, and it turned out it was basically some ranchers that had some containers available. So here we have farm totes. I believe she said 12 of the large ones and 10 or 12 the smaller ones.
11 big ones and 10 or 11 little ones.
Basically 10 each, roughly. So we have these pots that are quite large. What were they? 24 by 18, you said?
14, 28 by 14 maybe.
I don't know. They're large. So I have no concerns about growing whatever we want in there. I'd like to try potatoes this year and see how they do, just for the fun of it. So those are quite deep, and then these other ones are wide but more shallow. So obviously root crops and things that need big roots won't necessarily do well in there. So the pots need to be cleaned up, and they have some cracks, but we're going to drill holes in the bottoms anyways, so it's not a big deal. So in general, the things that we have grown in the past were tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, zucchini, strawberries, carrots, okra. So our goal this year is to grow basically the same thing, but maybe expand it a little bit. We definitely want some tomatoes and zucchini, and we want basically as much okra as we possibly get, because we never grows too much for us to eat. My favorite way to do it is just slice it up and put it in the oven and roast it like any other vegetable with a little bit of seasoning and oil, and gets a little brown and crispy on the edges. It's really yummy. We haven't had much success with beets, and I don't really like eating radishes. So I don't know if I'll be doing beets this year. And what else? We've grown tons of onions, but they never really get big, so it's kind of a waste of time. But like I said, this year I would love to experiment with some potatoes and just see what we can get, especially with these big deep pots with all this space for them to grow into. Of course, now the issue is filling the pots and finding enough soil and compost to fill them to make them effective. So come along with the journey this year for our 2024 garden. Thank you for joining us today in the backyard. Feel free to like and subscribe.